So welcome everyone. I'm super excited that you're here with us. I'm gonna go ahead and mute us all. If you do have issues unmuting, and if you can send a um, a text or a chat through the chat system here in the meeting. And then we have a few folks. Alice Sakamoto will be co-hosting with me as well. And so she'll be able to address any concerns if they're brought up. The meeting is being recorded. So if you're not comfortable with that, you can turn off your video. If you need to protect any sort of anonymity, feel free to change your name, and or you can exit the meeting itself. My name is Ryan. I am the Assistive Technology Department Manager, and I'm also an AT instructor myself here at Vista Center. And in a couple of weeks, this recording will be available today. This recording will be available on our website at vistacenter.org under the accessible technology, and then you'll find Tech It Out, and then the recordings will be there. We also have our YouTube channel as well, which you'll be able to locate on our website as well under those same directions. We hold these monthly tech meetings. They're on the first Friday of every month. And then as an attendee today, your name will go into the Tech It Out email list, and you'll be provided with the announcements 1 or 2 weeks prior to the meeting themselves. Excuse me. To ensure we all enjoy today's presentation, I've muted everyone. But then during the Q&A, please raise your hand if you would like to ask a question, and then either myself or Alice will call on people in the order that they've raised their hand. When you are called on, you'll be asked to be unmuted, and you'll need to select that. For those unfamiliar with the Zoom meeting shortcuts, on a PC, Alt plus Y is to raise and lower your hand. Alt plus A is to mute and unmute your audio. Mac is Option plus Y to raise your hand and lower it, and Command Shift plus A to mute and unmute your audio. And on a phone, it's *9 to raise and lower your hand, and *6 to toggle mute and unmute. And if you are working from a laptop and or a desktop computer, if you hold down the space bar, you'll be temporarily unmuted. You can speak, and we'll be able to hear you. And then if you lift up the space bar, you will automatically go back on Zoom, on mute. Without further delay, I'll now begin the presentation. We'll go ahead and hear from Josh Loebner, and he is a global head of inclusive design at VML. We'll hear his presentation with him and the panelists from SciTech Global, and then we'll go into our Q&A. Along with Josh has a video he would like to share himself, and so we'll get to have some kind of personal time with him, which is quite wonderful, that we weren't quite able to have during SciTech Global. So I'll go ahead and begin that video, and we'll come back in just a few moments. And as they say, when you're waiting online or on hold, it says, please hold, or one moment, please. So just bear with me and we'll get there. course, as Bob is familiar, things have changed with Zoom and the buttons are not where they usually are. So I apologize and continue to bear with me. All right.
From insight to action, establishing accessibility as a digital marketing standard. Speakers: Ben Ogilvie, Head of Accessibility for ArcTouch; Hannah Arner, Senior Manager, Digital Consumer Experience, The Coca-Cola Company; Josh Loebner, Global Head of Inclusive Design for VML; Moderator: Caroline DeRosier, Founder and CEO of Scribely.
Thanks so much, Correa and Ross, and thanks to the SciTech Global team and the Vista Center for hosting this conference, and really all the great work that you're doing in this space. I'm Caroline DeRosier, founder and CEO of Scribely, and we are a company that's focused on making digital media accessible and inclusive to everyone. And I'm super excited to be here and looking forward to digging into this topic. Today's brands and businesses have more opportunities than ever to engage with new and existing customers online. And of course, that also means there's a ton of competition out there, which leads us to the question of the day. Are brands truly reaching all of their digital customers? What are they doing to stand out in marketing campaigns? According to a Fable study, disabled people shop online twice as often as the population as a whole. So that means there's this huge opportunity to reach this audience. And being as digitally driven as they are, these are loyal customers, and it's so important to make sure that these campaigns are landing. Yet so many of these campaigns are still letting accessibility fall through the cracks, and we need to fix that. We can also fix that. We know how to do that. I'm really excited about this panel that we've pulled together today because we all represent a different stage across the digital marketing process. So we're not only going to be talking about why accessibility is so important for digital marketing, we're also going to be talking about how to make it happen. And this panel is also really cool because a lot of us actually work together. We're going to give you an inside look into how brands and agencies design, develop, and deliver accessible and inclusive campaigns at every stage of the process from start to finish. So welcome to our panelists, and I'd love to start with some introductions. Please introduce yourself, your connection to the topic of accessible campaigns, and also how you all work with others on this panel. And Josh, let's start with you.
Yeah, definitely. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Josh Loebner, Global Head of Inclusive Design for VML, which is a WPP company. Basically, WPP is a holding company of any number of different advertising agencies, and glad to have some sibling companies and brands we work with here on this call. As a quick aside, I am disabled, fully blind in my left eye, legally blind in my right. So this conversation is both personally and professionally on point, and excited to be a part of the conversation.
Great. And Hannah, let's go to you next.
Sure, yes. Hi, I am Hannah Arner, Senior Manager of Digital Consumer Experiences at the Coca-Cola Company. I am responsible for all of our own digital channels for the US and Canada. So that includes our brand websites, our native applications like Plus One, which you will probably hear come up a few other times in this panel, and CRM. So as a digital native and career-long digital marketer, accessibility has always been an incredibly important topic to not only my work, but to me as an individual. So prior to joining Coca-Cola, I've worked across a variety of industries and different clients. Some were incredibly committed to creating accessible mediums, and others were just learning or considering accessibility for the very first time. So excited to share a little bit about that experience with you today.
Great, thank you. And Ben.
Hey, I'm Ben Ogilvie. I'm head of accessibility at ArcTouch. We are also a WPP company, as Josh referenced, and we specialize in custom software design, largely for native apps as well as web, IoT, other products. And I My job is to make sure that when we're working with clients, they are thinking about disability inclusion and accessibility from the very beginning and all the way throughout the work stream, and think about how we can build products that reach the largest possible audience. Personally, I'm connected to accessibility. I have both a father and a son with disabilities. So it's, as Josh mentioned, both personal and professional passion for me. Our team helps the Coca-Cola company with originally inclusive design and now coaching on how to develop accessibly for the Plus One app. And Josh and I also often connect on ways that agencies can help other brands prioritize accessibility and inclusive design.
Fantastic. So we have Josh representing agency, we have Hannah representing brand, and Ben talking about technical solutions and accessibility services. We really have a lot of the pieces of the puzzle here in this room today. So I want to start sort of at the beginning of the process, and I'm going to start with you, Hannah. When establishing a delivery channel to reach customers, keeping accessibility in mind from the beginning is absolutely crucial. We talk about it all the time, if you want to reach that broadest audience possible. So would love to hear if you have any examples of where you've laid that groundwork successfully at Coca-Cola. How did you go about it? How was leadership involved in actually creating that buy-in?
Absolutely, yes. One of my favorite things to talk about. So we had a very unique opportunity last year with our native app for North America. We as Coca-Cola have had a native app for many, many years available for our consumers, but it was very much time for a refresh, not only for our back-end tech, but also for our front-end interface. So we spent a significant amount of time going through consumer research, testing, reevaluating the purpose that our native app can serve in a consumer's life. Coca-Cola is a brand that is crafted for every person to enjoy, and we really wanted to carry that same sentiment into our digital ecosystem. So we committed very early on to developing a native app with accessibility as a top priority, in the very early stages of our development, rather than trying to adjust or retrofit during or after the build. This was a significant learning curve for our development teams, but it was absolutely worth the effort, and we are better for it. With the support of our partners like Ben at ArcTouch, we've seen an overwhelmingly positive result coming out of user testing, and support from our leadership team has also been incredible. Accessibility is something that we are deeply committed to, and it was really a wonderful experience to make that commitment at the beginning of the product life cycle. I'd really see it from start to launch, and I won't say start to finish because we are never finished. It is an ongoing process, but really was just an incredible experience for us over the last year.
Yeah, I will just say my experience with Hannah's team and with other clients where leadership buy-in is kind of the linchpin of delivering on consistent accessibility and disability inclusion. When you've got stakeholders who understand the why and aren't looking at it just from a compliance standpoint, but from a human standpoint and an addressable market standpoint, and understand how disability inclusion and accessibility also align with both human imperatives and business imperatives, it really makes all the difference. Because in any project, in any delivery, there's always going to be competing priorities, and having folks with the mindset of it's worth the effort and being able to push past the areas where there's friction makes all the difference.
Yeah, it seems like that's where the spark happens, in a sense, where this desire to reach customers in a new way and to figure out some of the challenging aspects to solving some of the problems within these workflows. It starts with that buy-in, and it's so crucial to ensuring success along the way. So I'd love to go to Josh now, because there's this critical relationship that happens when we've set up marketing channels, when brands have made that intentional move forward that, yes, we do want to take on accessibility and disability inclusion in our branding. They often work with partners, with agencies to keep delivering that content, to find out the right messaging to really craft the creative in the right way. So I'd love for you, Josh, to speak to what kinds of practical steps and processes need to be put in place to ensure that really every piece of this content remains consistently accessible, especially to people with vision impairments. And at what point in that process should brands be working on alt text for images and audio description for videos? I want to get really specific about that because those are so important to the community. So kind of a lot of questions thrown into one, but feel free to start wherever you'd like.
Yeah, definitely. And if I miss anything in my answer, please do refresh the question and I'll be happy to add to it. But real quick, big announcement from Cannes Line for 2025. The International Festival of Creativity has created a new line focused on excellence in image descriptions for 2025. This is a first. Accessibility isn't simply commoditized or focused on policy or litigation or something that we want to devolve to, but we have an opportunity to see inclusive design, accessibility, and particularly accessibility for people who are blind or partially sighted for image descriptions to be awarded in the best creative category out there in advertising, Cannes Lines. So that's a consideration really where we're looking at process that accessibility shouldn't be an afterthought or bolted on, but central and embedded and at the heart of a campaign or any creative that accessibility can be a gateway to creativity. So what does that mean in the process? From the creative brief, from the initial strategy, that we are talking internally as teams, that there are people with disabilities that are potentially part of the team internally at the agency and brand, or that we can co-create with blind and partially sighted communities so that their voices can be a part of that process. As we map out processes to develop omnichannel campaigns, integrated marketing campaigns, we have different touch points, whether it's for production, photography, location scouting, developing research that aligns anything that we're doing to create images, either that are still or in video in a way that's compelling and within a campaign. We want to be able to map out that creative process for the agency and for the client, but we also want to hear from customers. What's their customer journey as a blind consumer, as somebody that's part of a marginalized group, and how they have barriers and how we can navigate through those to ensure that as we're creating something that it is authentic, it hits the mark, and it's not for that community, but with them. Particularly when it comes to alt tags, image descriptions, again, how can we be creative? We're wanting to drive people forward within a customer journey, not have them stop at one place and not move and not be able to go further down that pathway towards some type of action. And so within an image description, it's not simply talking about a tableau of what's in a scene, but what's important in the scene that I can latch onto as a consumer to move forward. And while we do have artificial intelligence within our teams and processes to be able to articulate what's seen in an image, and not just one image, but digital asset managers for huge campaigns that we can create image descriptions for vast assets. There's the AI component, but there's also that human component that we can allow people from the community to share their thoughts on if this aligns with their thinking on what's important in an image to be described. And we test to ensure that what's described in an image is as important as ever. Audio descriptions are still an afterthought. They are barely incorporated into advertising. There's a lot of complexities around that, and we're striving to make some changes that I'm happy to talk about later. But the thing about audio descriptions or alt tags is that whether it's for video or photography, we can not let it be an afterthought, but ensure that we can be regimented, cumulative, and methodical and repeated within what we're doing to ensure that it is just as much another layer of creative as any other component of a campaign.
Right. I heard it's all fantastic. I'm really excited by everything you just said. accessibility, and especially alt text and audio description, is a creative endeavor. I'm so glad that it's being recognized. It also is so often the part that falls through the cracks in campaigns. We see campaigns launch that actually are meant to represent disabled people with new and exciting products, and the alt text and the audio description is missing, and it's just fallen through the cracks along the way. But bringing that further back to the folks that are in those creative teams and making decisions and working on that is so important. It's very excited to hear about the work that you're doing. Throwing it out to just the panel kind of to follow up any of that. Which teams should be responsible for this work, or teams? Should there be a collaboration? How can we kind of create this creative energy?
I mean, I'll start with, you'll hear this probably on every panel today. And in this, that everyone has their role to play. Everyone has, it is a team effort. Accessibility is a team sport. And so there is the aspect of, it needs to be part of the product requirements. It needs to be part of the, when we're talking about building out, it needs to be part of the creative brief. It needs to be part of the copy team. It needs to be part of, everyone has an aspect of making sure that they're keeping inclusion in mind throughout the work stream. And I'll touch on this a little more later, where there can be challenges if a person or a team within that work stream doesn't carry that forward into the next step in the workflow. But I think it is critical to also have those creative partners in place. And with the Plus One app, as an example, we work, Carolyn, with your team to assist with that descriptive and rich image description, copywriting, and as we get into video, we've worked with you on other projects on making sure we have that contextual, rich audio description for videos. And it really does make a huge difference to have that lens, that creative lens, as part of the creative process.
Great, thank you so much, Ben. Of course, there are challenges, right? It's very difficult to implement something new within a workflow, especially one that's been long-standing with teams that are used to working in a certain way. Coordinating these accessibility efforts across any organization is difficult. Teams have different timelines. How does this change that? There's varying levels of experience and expertise within these teams, and they're always juggling competing priorities and timelines. So Ben, I'm going to start back with you. What have been the greatest obstacles to overcome for large organizations? Where have you found successes, and where do you feel there are still opportunities?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I think shared prioritization is really crucial, and has been in some instances a challenge, because everybody is held to certain has certain accountabilities and certain things they're measured against from a business output standpoint. And if a member of that work stream doesn't have their incentives aligned with prioritizing accessibility, disability inclusion as part of their KPIs, it is tempting when the rubber meets the road and timelines are tight to push it out and think, oh, we'll get to it later, we'll come back to it. And as we all know, later never happens, or it is dramatically more expensive to do it later. And so that's a big one. Another challenge is just churn. We can have team members either on our side or team members on stakeholder or client side who are fully bought in. But if you have a new stakeholder come in who hasn't had that shared collective prioritization, things can start to fall off. And then two other quick challenges. One is that channels themselves, platforms, can actually strip accessibility artifacts from campaigns as they're being distributed through omnichannel. You can lose audio descriptions, you can lose captions or alt text depending on what channels they're distributed through. And that's something that, we need to work with the platform providers themselves to make sure that their metadata passes through effectively. And the last one, just for, in the context of a lot of the work that my team does, is the kind of wild west of how web content accessibility applies to native apps, which is kind of a different animal. So as far as successes, I think the biggest value, the best way to get those stakeholders aligned is through empathy and exposure. Nobody wants to do the wrong thing. Nobody wants to be exclusionary, but there's often just a lack of awareness, and seeing the human impact of something you're creating not be able to be enjoyed by real people can really switch the thinking from compliance or timeline to how do we craft this in a way that really resonates with as many people, with everyone we want to reach, and then embedding some of that expertise in with teams, making sure you've got the right folks with expertise at each of those steps in the work stream to help advise and coach and upskill people who are newer to the work, really makes a difference as well.
Yeah, it really does. It's hard to be new at something, to make mistakes. It's part of the process. We have a lot to redesigning our creative workflows, and I imagine there will be mistakes, but being forgiving of that and learning from them and planning for the future with an understanding of how this impacts. I love what you said there. Hannah or Josh, I'd like to hear from you as well. How does it feel to be new about this, or maybe speak to some of the obstacles of why this hasn't happened yet, why it has been a challenge to implement up until now?
Well, just to jump in, and I couldn't agree more with everything Ben shared. And just a consideration, my role, Ben's role, and others on the client side, there were not tech startups that focused on accessibility innovations 10 years ago. There were not global heads of inclusive design 10 years ago, let alone 6, 7 years ago. So we're seeing shifts where there is now leadership, but it's still relatively new. There are so many advocates and allies in the space now when it comes to accessibility and disability inclusion and supporting blind and low vision consumers, and bringing more people who are blind and partially sighted to be at the table and working at agencies and brands. But a challenge is it's still fresh, it's still new. So that means a lot of training, a lot of team learning, and also trying to engage those clients that do have leadership like Coca-Cola's. Some of them do, some of them don't. And for those that don't, it's still a bit of a leap of faith, because also there's not a lot of data about disabled consumers out there. There may be broad data, but there's not a lot of data specific to particular brands. And so it's really this catch-22 where we try to get certain clients who may be earlier on that path of accessibility to anchor into it and to start moving forward. But without the data, it can be a hurdle. And so there's lots of complexities that go beyond the need to have it, to really having to explain and educate in so many ways that go beyond the functional considerations of accessibility within the process to the why it's necessary.
Yeah, I would echo everything that Ben and Josh shared. I would also say we, as a massive global organization as Coca-Cola, we probably experience this more than most. Even though Plus One is a North America specific channel, I think it's really important to consistently share the progress and the learnings around accessibility with other teams and regions across the globe. Of course, there are nuances when it comes to accessibility requirements and compliance and things like that, depending on your specific location or region, but the commitment to meet and exceed those requirements is a global understanding for us at Coca-Cola. I think that's been very, very crucial to our success. Just showcasing the work, sharing it with other teams, sharing that excitement that we have is truly infectious. So as I mentioned earlier, this is a continuous process. There will always be room for improvement, but sharing the learning learnings that we have gained with other teams. It serves as inspiration, and it's really that intentional effort to share the progress that has made the biggest impact for us.
That really
Yeah,
merges
and
nicely with, oh, sorry, Ben, go ahead.
I want to just say one other quick thing. One other huge success that we're starting to see is that brands are starting to include language around disability inclusion and accessibility expectations consistently in both contract language and creative briefs, which drives that as a requirement and as an expectation in both the initial building of a channel and in the delivery of ongoing campaigns. And that like from a client or buyer perspective, to drive that really does make the expectation resonate on a consistent basis as part of the lifeblood of those ongoing campaigns, and that is a key thing.
Yeah, I want to dig into this this question of consistency, because we've started to see more campaigns, more advertisements that feature disabled people hitting large stages and moments like the Super Bowl. And we're also hearing there's organization happening around this from a leadership level, like we've talked about. So how do we keep that consistency, not just for campaigns that are about the disability community, but really across all campaigns, that this is just the standard way of doing marketing from here on out? Hannah, I'd like to start with you, but I'm sure Ben and Josh, you also have thoughts on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is incredibly important to find agency partners who are as passionate about this as you are. That is really what it comes down to. So we're so fortunate to have the experts within WPP, between Josh and Ben here as two examples, consistently pushing us to be better and keep the momentum that we've gained so far when it comes to accessibility. So beyond our initial rebuild and the focus on assistive technology, we conduct consistent user testing with a wide range of users, including those with blindness and low vision. And I think that real-time feedback that we gather from those sessions has led to not only creating solutions that address those specific concerns, but it also serves as inspiration to how we can improve the overall experience for all consumers. So it's really vital that we capture that feedback along the way, never assuming that we've ever reached a stopping point when it comes to addressing accessibility, but having those agency partners on that journey with you, one, to hold you accountable, but also just to really keep pushing and keep that momentum moving, has been our biggest driving force.
I'll jump in and share. We really do see opportunities that this shouldn't be simply for a diversity brief or a disability specific brief that we want to engage a particular audience, that we want to elevate accessibility, not relegate it to just one campaign for one point in the year like Global Accessibility Awareness Day, right? How can we regularly and repeat that continuity across campaigns? And what that takes is leadership. It takes people who are having a drumbeat across agencies and brands. But particularly, it takes metrics and insights to be able to do research, to invite people with disabilities to share insights. We do need co-creation and user testing to continually optimize the work, but we also need at the other end, when it comes to conversions and return on investment, to be able to measure consumers' brand awareness, brand impact, dollars spent, finances converted to purchasing product, to know that what we're doing with accessibility is meaningful and making a difference to the bottom line, that it's not just a nice to have for a brand or in line with particular policies or governance, but actually consumers are hopefully purchasing more products because of the accessibility. And it's not just people with disabilities that are purchasing those products because of accessibility, but accessibility can benefit so many more people than just people in the disability community, or particularly in this case, those who are blind or visually impaired.
Yeah, it seems like we have an opportunity here for some healthy competition with creative agencies figuring out how they can provide this service to brands, to their clients who need this. they're asking for it. They're trying to figure out how to implement it within their campaigns, and they need great partners, as Hannah had said. So that seems like that we should start seeing more of that from agencies of, you know, rolling up the sleeves and figuring out how we can get this done, and also from Ben, organizations like ArcTouch that are helping and down in the weeds of like, how do we create this platform and make it accessible from the beginning? We have the services that we can offer you to help actually get this done and see it all the way through. So do you have anything to add, Ben, on that point?
Yeah, I think I have the corner of the universe where I sit as part of a large holding company like WPP, and I see the number of things that agencies touch on behalf of brands in every sector around the world. And many agencies historically have seen accessibility as a compliance checkbox at best. And only if it's in the contract language, if a client asks for it. And I talk often about, just selfishly, the world I need my son to grow up in is one where that thinking is flipped, and where agencies can be one of the driving forces behind building more inclusively and consistently, encouraging clients to push farther and farther above the floor of compliance. And a world where agencies are trying to outcompete each other on who can do accessibility and disability inclusion the best is the world I need my son to grow up in. And so, again, that's just kind of a selfish personal thing, but I feel that there is so much opportunity for us to partner with our clients and brands and help to build that consistent DNA of inclusion throughout the creative process, throughout the technological process. Like I said, it takes all of us playing our role, but I see so much opportunity to make a significant impact there.
That's great. Thanks so much for saying that, Ben. So we've talked a lot about how the really good work happens in the process, right? From, between the agency and creative and brands working together all along the way, really excellent humans that are great at their jobs, figuring out how to make this work. Of course, we're also in the age of generative AI, and we need to think about, how does technology come into the mix to power these creative teams, to power the marketing process? At this point, we're kind of all aware it exists. It's more like, how is it used? How is it useful? So starting with Josh, are there areas where generative AI is doing a really good job making consumer marketing more accessible at scale, and areas where it still misses the mark? You can answer one or both of those questions, and then we can open up for a dialogue.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for that question. It's amazing to be both disabled and in a space that focuses on accessibility right now, particularly with AI, because there are things that are happening with artificial intelligence at the confluence of that and accessibility that were just pipe dreams, let alone a year ago, if not sooner. So one of the things that we're working on when it comes to AI and accessibility is audio descriptions. Audio descriptions right now are a bit fractured and challenging within the creative process, typically using outside vendors from agencies, costing different levels across different vendors, different time frames. And ultimately, when we divest audio descriptions from the creative process, it starts to dumb down the creativity. And so people who are listening to audio descriptions in advertisements that may be done by an outside party may not as easily align with the creative, with the campaign, with the call to action. So at WPP, we are incorporating artificial intelligence in bold new ways and bringing accessibility into that, where, for example, within our production studio, where video can be developed at scale for campaigns very easily, and more directly within brand creativity, where we were pulling in brand guidelines, audience insights, media placement data through artificial intelligence that aggregates all this data to more optimally and effectively and creatively deliver assets. we're incorporating an AI-powered audio description tool. It's still in prototype, and we're piloting it out where within that creative process, agency teams now can, on the fly, be able to create dynamic audio descriptions in ways that are more optimally aligned to a campaign and to a brand, that's just imbues narrative that ties into what the message needs to be, what it should be, and how it can drive consumers. It's saving time. Hopefully, it saves money, and as well, it gets customers to take that next step. And the other opportunity is that the AI can be toggled in a way that the audio descriptions can fit within a particular advertising segment, let's say 30 seconds or 60 seconds, but as well, it could be expanded audio description in a way that, say, on a brand's website, it allows people who are blind or partially sighted to really unpack a lot more about the richness and nuance of the tableau of what's being conveyed through video, through audio.
Yeah, I think I look at the work that's happening there in prototype. I look at just recently Seeing AI launched a new suite of features. The Microsoft Seeing AI app, if anyone's not familiar, launched a new suite of features where a user can upload a video and it will process and present that audio description of the video. So that can benefit end users, not just through a campaign, but end users with a video that their friend sent them. And, again, it's not perfect, but it gives more access than existed previously. And it also, PDF recognition in Seeing AI is new. And so those sorts of things that are on the end user side can be paired with those additional steps in the creative process to make sure that the creativity is there and the inclusion is there in the campaign, but also giving end users the ability to dive deeper if they choose to on their own, and having that combination of AI assisted efficiency in the creative process and user facing AI on demand, where they can choose to go as deep into the content as they want to, I think is a really exciting thing. One of the things that I keep talking to clients about, though, is don't assume that AI is means you don't have to think about it anymore, because you're then turning over your brand voice.
Yep.
In ways that could be damaging. And so making sure that there's always that human in the loop to ensure that the AI is a good draft and that it is being taken across the finish line in a way that lands and resonates appropriately is so important. So, and will continue to be.
Yeah, Ben, I was just going to say that exact same thing. So all of the tools and all of the advancements that have come out of AI are incredibly exciting. But I think for me personally, I know I still have so much to learn when it comes to AI for accessibility. But I think that point around the human-centric nature of it is still very, very relevant and very, very important. We never want to lose that human-centric nature of the work that we do and how we approach our brands and our campaigns. Once the technology, enables us to better serve our consumers, we're really excited to lean in and test and see what we can accomplish. But yeah, making sure that a human is the one that carries it over the finish line is very, very important.
Great perspectives all around, and glad you were all working at these roles, because it does take these perspectives at every point, thinking about how can we power our creative teams, how can we use technology in a really smart way to advance our workflows, to make things better. We need both. That's kind of where it sounds like we're landing. So I'd love to just do a round and have you all share any parting thoughts or key takeaways that you really want to include as part of the discussion of this topic. And Ben, I'm going to start with you.
I'll kind of restate a few things that we touched on earlier, but just I think bear repeating. I think thinking about maintaining and prioritizing inclusion at global scale and at the rapid pace of business it just comes back to that refrain that, when you're in this space, you'll hear regularly, but again, it bears repeating that accessibility isn't a project, it's a process. It's part of it has to be part of the DNA, part of the culture. The only way it survives and thrives in a lightning fast environment is through being embedded, having authentic representation embedded from the beginning and throughout the work stream, making sure you have folks with the right mindset and expertise, as we mentioned, to help upskill those around them who are newer to the work, and finding those opportunities to optimize and work efficiently, so that it becomes part of the way of doing business, the way of creating content, creating digital platforms, and that it extends beyond digital and into the interplay between digital and physical and real products and all of those touch points in the customer journey. Finding those areas to optimize and build it into the process, while also making sure that we never lose track of that human at the center of it. And so that's why I'm so thankful to have partners like all of you to work with in this work, because it is an exciting challenge, and it keeps getting more and more interesting.
Absolutely. I think a great way to summarize this conversation is 3 Ps for me: process, prioritization, and partners. You have to have accessibility as a part of your process, fully ingrained just as much as any other piece of the process would be. You have to have the right partners to bring you along on that journey and hold you accountable, and really move the work forward. And then that prioritization piece is incredibly important, making sure that you're building, with accessibility in mind at the beginning of the project, rather than trying to accommodate at the end. I think those 3 points are really a great summary of everything that we've discussed today. So really thankful to have our existing partners here on this call. But yeah, I think there's so much opportunity, and we're so excited for how much we can accomplish together and the path forward that we have.
I'll just jump in quickly and share the 2 C's. It's not only about accessibility, supporting and creating a gateway for creativity. It's also about creators, that accessibility can support people with disabilities, particularly those in this conversation who are blind, partially sighted, visually impaired, to be able to be creative and to showcase that you, as somebody with a disability, can be a creator in this industry, whether it's working for a brand such as Coca-Cola or other major brand out there, or small startup, or an ad agency. Candidly, disappointingly, there are few people who are blind or partially sighted that I'm aware of that work at brands or at agencies. And so when it comes to accessibility, we are at a wonderful time to be able to see how accessibility can support and make more accessible creative assets, but also to be able to support creators to dream up anything that you want to, and to be able to work in a place that allows you, whether it's working fully remote, or amongst colleagues in an office, to be able to have accommodations and accessibility to support you as a creator in this industry. That's an opportunity, hopefully, I'd like to convey, that disability and accessibility can support both creators and the creative itself.
Yeah, it's a wonderful time, because we're not at the beginning anymore. We're in it. We're in the middle. We're seeing examples out there, and people really working hard at these roles. For organizations that still feel new to this, though, these marketing campaigns can seem challenging to implement. They may seem that way. And it may actually involve hard work, but it's good work, and we like hard work, right? We need to design these workflows and kind of pull apart the complexity of these procedures that impact our teams. We need to figure out how to overcome these barriers that we know are leading us to these missed opportunities of reaching our audiences. And businesses simply can't afford to let accessibility fall through the cracks, or to wait any longer to figure this out, because there's this healthy competition happening out there. So I think, a lot of challenges, of course, ahead of us to solve, but the good news is that we have all the tools we need to fix the problem, and we have experts that can figure this out. So every step in this digital marketing process, as you've seen today, it needs our attention, from brand to agency to platform to technology, production, all of it. We need to look at every single step and figure out, how does this work? To put accessibility back into our processes and our products where it really should have always been from the beginning. So hopefully this session got you thinking about how you can take the next steps in turning insights into action for your marketing campaigns, or for leveling them up. Maybe you've worked on accessibility before. Let's see that great creative come out in 2025. And if you need guidance, reach out to us. We've done this before. We can help you take shortcuts. And I'm just so grateful that we had this conversation today. Thank you to our awesome group of panelists, and also to the audience for your attention to this important topic. Thanks, everyone. And back to you, Carey and Ross and the SiteTech Global team.
And hey, Ryan, this is Josh Loebner, just joining back on. The video, it is about an 8-minute video, and knowing we are at kind of the end of this conversation, it may make sense for you to circulate that across your network after this call, and I'm happy to answer questions from that conversation, or share a 30-second synopsis of what that video that you would have shared beyond what has already been seen is all about.
Sure. Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and just give the synopsis, and then we'll turn it over to you. And then when you're ready, we'll begin Q&As.
Yeah, definitely. So just to give everybody a little bit more background, that conversation was amazing, and I'm happy to answer any questions from it. One of the things to talk about that we're really excited for currently is a project we just collaborated with one of our clients, Tennessee Tourism. So we facilitate all of the marketing and communications and digital efforts for Tennessee Tourism. One of the challenges, though, is while the website is accessible, we wanted to enhance some of the accessibility of it in a way that hadn't been thought of previously, particularly with alt text for screen readers, to be able to more creatively convey image descriptions. And while we have literally 30,000 people at our agency, we could have had any one of them write creative alt text. We wanted to be able to engage Tennesseans in a way and welcome people to Tennessee in a way that is fittingly very Tennessee. We connected with songwriters who write very evocative narratives within their songs, to be able to incorporate from their point of view words from a songwriter's perspective that help to describe the images, not simply from a visual definition, but from a feeling consideration. So across all of the imagery on tnvacation.com, we are collaborating with songwriters to update all of the alt texts to welcome more tourists. So that's, and we've got an audio described video that showcases that process. That, again, it's about an 8-minute video, so I didn't want to play it here, but hopefully Ryan and the team can circulate it to everybody, and you can get a sense of a little bit more about what we're doing there. But beyond that, I'm happy to answer any questions from that video, or talk a little bit more about what anyone is interested in talking about.
That is so cool. And what a kind of out of the box, if you will. It's something in the when you were in the panelist and speaking, talking about how when it's alt text, and sometimes when it's just a generative AI kind of comes up with something, or maybe an outsourcing company will fill it in, that it misses some of the, or it often can miss some of the emotion that can be put into it. And you'd be the person, using the accessibility feature wouldn't I being visually impaired myself, would miss what the art is trying to convey, and so I love, that's totally out of the box to have music, and I'm definitely going to look that up. Morgan, I see that you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Well, first off, I just want to say, Josh, thank you so much for coming to the Site Tech Global panel and having that discussion with Hannah and Ben and Caroline. That was extremely informative. So I'm totally blind myself. I am also, in my free time, I do content creation. And I spend a lot of my time reaching out to, some companies. At least previously I was doing this a lot more, reaching out to companies attempting to educate on disability and inclusion and why certain things like alt text are so important. And some companies really listened to what I had to say. Others, on one hand, I had this thing where, I might message them, I'd get no response, but then I would start seeing that maybe say 5% of their photos had an extremely basic alt text, but then the rest of them just didn't. And so I'm curious from your perspective, and this is information that I learned today, if maybe this was done just because they lack the team to put the full force behind it, they lack the resources, or is it just that they just didn't care about inclusion, which is what I kind of was getting from that message initially. So I was wondering if you've ran into that with companies.
Well, it's also just a lack of education, to be quite blunt. Interestingly, when I have conversations with colleagues at my agency or our clients, the accessibility parts of what we do are not familiar. Excluding captions, everybody knows what captions are. It's something that you don't have to educate anyone on because they've been a part of advertising and other programming for so long. But audio descriptions and alt text, there's a lot of people who just have no idea what they are and confuse them and don't understand the value of them. Either the people that are creating it or the brands that need to embrace it. So really, we're almost at a kind of an accessibility 101 educational conversation with a lot of our clients about what this is, why it's important, how it can add layers of creativity and support from a search engine optimization perspective, and welcome new consumers, right? Or new people to be invested in a brand. And we share the big numbers too, right? The number of people who are blind or partially sighted here in the US and globally, and how that trajectory is going to continue to increase quite significantly over the next 10 years. And that screen readers will continue to be much more important as everyone moves further into a digital first experience. So alt text really is just as important as captions or any other accessibility. But to your point, right, it's something that's still not really not considered as readily. And one of the things that our industry is doing to help push the momentum forward, we have an advertising awards program called the Lions. And every year there are annual awards for any number of different types of advertising from a creative perspective, um, recognizing billboards, or television spots, or film, or print ads. And this year they're introducing a new award for 2025, the first one that supports accessibility for image descriptions. And that's important because what that shows is that our industry is starting to recognize that accessibility needs to be a part of what we do every day, just as much as any other component of creativity and the work that we put into it. So hopefully there is some momentum there that's taking off, but again, what it takes is people like you and others to kind of continue to have that drumbeat of showcasing the value and the reasoning for incorporating it. And And yeah, I've got some clients who are excited about it, and other clients who um, still disappointingly, um, maybe too busy to consider it.
Yeah. Thank you for answering that question. You kind of summed up what I was already thinking regarding that. I will say that the other companies that I follow and engage with in brands, from just like television production companies to other people, the ones that do make it a point to add alt text on every single photo, I give massive you know congratulations to and appreciation for. And that's really something I feel like I shouldn't, and I do, I thank them. I will write them and say, thank you so much for adding this alt text. It really helps more than you know. Explain why it's so important, reiterate that point. But I feel like that's something that, hopefully one day we won't have to do. My dream from an accessibility standpoint is one day for ideally all photos to have, good quality alt text. And also, my second point on this is to have it where, audio description is just as ingrained as captions.
Yes.
You can put on anything and audio description will be there. And I think that is one way that AI, it is a step forward in that
Yes.
direction, potentially.
Exactly. We're moving forward with that. And I want to be just straight with everybody on this conversation. I've talked with many different blind individuals, either fully blind from birth or moved into blindness at a particular point in their life. And for some, those individuals don't recognize the value of creativity and accessibility. And by that, going beyond information, right? Some people might push back and say, well, I've got all the information in the live text on the website that's being read by my screen reader. Why do I need to know what the images are? And
Mm-hmm.
that's where I want to be able to open the door for people within blind communities to recognize we need to go beyond information, right, to imagination.
Yep.
And too often, um, there are parts of the world that literally and figuratively aren't recognized by members of the blind community that now, through technology, we have the power to welcome into our lives. And it goes beyond those typical sounds that we're familiar with, whether it's music or spoken word, to immerse ourselves in imagination and creativity in ways that we haven't before. And that's what I would ask of everyone on this call is to understand that the the aperture of our being as individuals in blind communities has an opportunity to expand and grow, but it's up to all of us to recognize it and step towards those considerations of creativity and imagination. Also having information. Information is critical, but we all have the power to become um, a higher level of consideration of the world around us s- by with creativity and imagination. And I'll just leave it at that. And happy to answer other questions.
Thank you. I'm going to go back on mute now, but thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. That was very educational.
Well, definitely, Morgan. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Um, uh, if there are other questions, go ahead and raise your hand. I don't see anyone at the moment. Oh, Bob, go ahead. Go ahead, Bob, you're unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
I
Yes.
can.
Okay, sorry about that.
Hey, Bob.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Hopefully you've had a good day, and thank you so much for taking the time to watch the recorded video and to speak up in this Q&A session.
Sure, no problem. Thank you for your presentation today. I was wondering, trying to figure out how to put this, in given today's changing political climate,
Oh, yeah.
have you noticed anything with your clients,
Yes.
any resistance from your
Oh,
clients
yes.
in wanting to move forward with some of these initiatives?
Yeah, and I'll be open and candid. So in my role, I work amongst a number of different individuals that are that support other marginalized groups. So I'm part of the Inclusion Experience Consultancy, and we have people on our team that support um, LGBTQ plus communities, people of color, um, Latina, Hispanic communities, and accessibility is still a conversation that's a little less polarizing. And so I'm continuing to engage our clients in conversations, and the political nature of it isn't brought up as directly, whereas for other members of the team that I'm a part of, it's more of a delicate dance to navigate, where some clients are reorienting how they speak about broadly diversity, equity, and inclusion. Um, but for the most part, accessibility typically, from a brand's messaging and narrative, can sometimes more easily be able to still um, have a place within the conversation.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, that said, it's a precarious time to say the least.
Yes, especially with today's announcement about the elimination of the Civil Rights Division in the Justice Department.
Well, yes, it's disappointing on so many levels.
Thanks, Bob. Sakashi, I see that you have your hand up.
Hi, that's Sakshi, and I completely understand the confusion. Okay, so thank you for the presentation. Absolutely loved it. This is my first time in one of these conversations, and again, loved it. So I'm legally blind myself. Also, I'm completely blind in one eye and legally blind in the other.
Yes.
Also, I'm an entrepreneur trying to build assistive technology for blind people. So I have this question a lot of times. This is in reference to the question before Bob's. So when you mentioned creativity in the audio description space, for example. So I
Yes.
just want to expand that, and I complete as a from a user perspective, I completely agree with that because currently I feel like the general assistive technology space is still trying to figure out the needs and the wants and the layer above it, which is like the creative space, the exploratory space, is still not that well addressed. So as a user, I do wish the creativity part was an option in that space. But as an entrepreneur, a lot of times I think, um, how do you standardize that? You know, needs are like when you talk about information through audio description, that's like the baseline, right? You've got to start from that point. And that is something that you can more or less standardize, and hence you can scale it and apply, let's say, a software to multiple applications or platforms. Whereas when it comes to, say, creativity, wouldn't it be like much harder to standardize those softwares and apply them to multiple and hence scalable in a scalable way? What do you think? Does that even make sense?
Well, here, I'll share a couple of points. And Sakshi, thanks so much for your question. And again, this is Josh. So, um, from a standardization perspective,
Mm-hmm.
I will share a website with everyone, and I also posted it in this meeting's chat. It's adaccessibility.org. That's adaccessibility.org. And that was launched. I served on an accessibility steering committee with any number of different individuals across major brands. And we launched this just um, a few months ago, so in late 2014. And that website incorporates a number of different um, practices and standardizations for teams, whether you're at a large agency, you're at a brand, or you're an entrepreneur, to be able to start to incorporate more consistent accessibility across the projects that you're working on, whether it's a television commercial, a website, social media, um, and other platforms. So that's one way. Now, consistency in creativity at scale in a global campaign, um, it takes teamwork. It takes individuals within a team to focus on the process and to be able to carry that baton for the accessibility throughout it. Artificial intelligence, though, within the tool we're still prototyping for audio descriptions, is something that how we're incorporating creativity is through what's known as well, we're calling them brand brains. And we have an AI powered platform that can pull in every single piece of content that a brand, let's say it's Gillette razors, that Gillette razors is doing for 2025. It pulls in all of that content and it analyzes all of that content. And when we then upload a video that needs audio description incorporated to it for a new Gillette advertisement, it has all of that creative information within its brand brain that it now can leverage to be able to ensure that the audio description that's being crafted by the AI is in line with the overarching brand narrative. Now, I want to be clear and share that within this tool, we also have copywriters that can review it. We have accessibility team members that can review it so that it's not just the machine or AI itself that's developing the audio description, but it's also vetted through people teams. But that said, that's a way that we're able to scale creativity across massive campaigns, which is pretty exciting. Where the audio description not only can in almost an instant be developed by the tool, but also translated into dozens of different languages to be shared across different markets for the same commercial. So it's pretty exciting.
That is really cool. Thank you.
That is really exciting. Thank you so much for elaborating
Yeah.
on that.
Yes, definitely.
Becky, I see that you have your hand up. Go
Yes,
ahead.
thank you. Josh, I'd like to change the subject a little bit, if you don't mind. I'm concerned that this current administration's war on DEI is going to negatively influence companies' willingness and interest in making things accessible. And in fact, it is possible that certain uh, parts of the administration may pressure companies to get rid of their DEI teams, particularly accessibility teams. I don't think that's legal. I don't know, but I'd be very curious to know what your thoughts are on the subject. Is it going to get much harder because of all of the push against DEI?
Well, that's a great question, and I do want to share. My role is global, and so we take a broad perspective on accessibility um, and diversity, equity, and inclusion in a way that there are some clients that we work with where even before this administration, it was a bit of a challenge, whereas other clients have, like Microsoft, have been focused on it since the beginning, right? Or for many, many years, and they are not wavering. Um, and we also look at it globally, where we have leadership such as for Unilever. Mark Powell, who's a former Paralympian who's fully blind, he heads up their, he's the director of their Accessibility Center of Excellence, and he's based in London. Or Sam Latif, who's Procter and Gamble's global accessibility lead, and she's based, I believe, in Ireland, but maybe the United Kingdom. And So we take a holistic approach where there are certain markets that are going to continue moving forward in wonderful ways to welcome accessibility and more broadly DE&I. And there are other markets here in the US where we have clients like Microsoft who are unwavering, who we'll continue to work with, but then other clients who may reorient some of their initiatives. And we are not Um, at my agency, we are creators. We are not lawyers. We are not policymakers. We hopefully can work with our clients in ways that welcome as many people as possible. But if they pivot, then that's something that we have to learn to navigate in our own way with those individual clients.
So broader than just your own organization, is there much more that the community, particularly the blind community, might be doing to raise awareness of the critical importance of having accessibility features so that companies don't think, companies who are just starting out, or they're not the behemoths like Microsoft,
Right.
smaller companies that are just starting out will be encouraged to pursue this rather than just saying, what the heck, nobody cares. DEI is uh, frowned upon these days anyway, so why bother?
Right. So I can easily take it down to a local level.
Yeah.
Start with your National Federation of the Blind chapter in your community or organizations like Vista Center or the Lighthouse to be able to start to have a groundswell of conversation rather than a one-off individual dialogue with a company. Get various members of blind communities in your market. If there's a local restaurant or bookstore or whatever business there is that you'd like to get to stay on the accessibility bandwagon for what they're doing, then allow those organizations to an extent bring together your voices into a chorus in that local market to start to have a conversation. If there is a day in your market that celebrates, if you're doing something locally to celebrate Global Accessibility Awareness Day or Disability Pride Month in July or any day, it doesn't matter. If you have a monthly meeting with any of these organizations, invite some of these companies and brands to that event. Or, if that's too much for them to take the time, then have that organization share some input and feedback to them in a way that, again, shows that you're not just one person in one market, but that there are a larger number of voices that want to be able to make change. From a national perspective, I can guarantee that AFB, ACB, NFB, and other disability rights and advocacy organizations are pushing legislators, congresspeople, and the executive branch. But again, at that consumer level, at that one person level, start locally with them, what you're doing on a regular basis with whatever groups you already associate with to support blind initiatives in your community, and let that be the larger voice in that market to keep visibility of accessibility and the importance of it.
Okay, thank you.
Hmm.
Great question and discussion. Are there any other questions? I don't see any other hands being raised. I do have a question myself. Josh,
Yes.
thank you again so much. This is so enlightening. And then also it is your passion for it, not only being a visually impaired person yourself, but just your heart for the way you're talking about diversity, inclusion, um, is and equity is definitely heartwarming, I'd say. And so thank you. It brings a lot of hope to me. So my question is, being a low vision individual myself, I usually have larger screens and the font is very large. It takes up a lot of the real estate on the screen and so forth. A lot of websites and particularly websites, I would say, they overlap a lot of the text. It's not like there are buttons that I'll be missing or information that I'll be completely missing, not knowing, and it won't be accessible for me to utilize it. I'm not using alt text or audio description, but instead just larger. Are there areas of discussion of those types of, I guess, uses becoming more accessible at all?
Well, I'm going to answer this in two questions or two answers rather. The first I'll say, when it comes to your commentary about my passion, you know, everyone that's on this call, in their personal life and in what you do professionally, or what you do every day, you know, regardless of whether it's personal or professional, right? We're all resilient, and that resiliency is something hopefully that doesn't stop and doesn't start, but that it's ongoing. And although there can be peaks and valleys in resilience, right? Things we have to kind of muster our own strength to be able to rise to the occasion, and um, we may feel defeated in some instances, but hopefully we can push forward and showcase to others that we are a part of society and we shouldn't be othered and we should be welcomed in so many ways. Um, with our family, with our friends, with our coworkers. So that resilience hopefully is something that understandably we can all be mindful of and champion over the next 1,000 days, uh, three years and some change. That we're a resilient group that can carry on over the next in this administration, understanding the hurdles and challenges and uh, candidly, I understand there's a lot of a lot of significant negativity that's happening right now. But um, I also recognize that in the scheme of things, there's a lot of positives, right? And so sometimes there's a lot of noise out there that doesn't really affect us. Then again, there are some initiatives right now that may be um, on the radar of this administration that will directly affect us. So I think it's for all of us understanding what we can control and what we can't control. And for the things that we can't control, can we find others to be able to be our advocates and champions and to, again, be that narrative thread of resilience? To your point about low vision, I'll be quite blunt and share that it's a bit of a liminal state. And by liminal state, I mean a, an ambiguous consideration in that we have immediate and effective solutions to be able to support accessibility for individuals who are fully blind. When it comes to magnification, um, there are certain challenges that come up when it comes to readability. Um, and some solutions haven't been found that Ryan, I understand wholeheartedly some of the concerns you have about overlapping text and um, uh, that it's almost a consideration, not so much that the um, website itself needs to find a solution for, but potentially um, the either a combination of that and the technology itself. But also, there can be additional multimodal ways of engaging content. I say that by if one technology is failing us, such as a magnifier, maybe another technology could come in, such as uh, a Be My Eyes to be able to interpret what's on a screen, or Ray-Ban Meta glasses to interpret what's in front of us in a way that maybe we scale down the magnification that may still be a challenge for us to be able to easily interpret the text, but another technology like Be My Eyes or Seeing AI or Ray-Ban Meta or Ira or something else can interpret for us. But it's a place that is still has problems to solve when it comes to low vision.
Yes, thank you. I do like the idea of not necessarily trying to fix an issue with the technology that we have, more so what new technology can come in and even advance it further. So yes, we are running out of time. Bob, I do see that you have your hand up. Do you have a quick question? You are muted. Okay. Oh, there you are, Bob.
I was going to say, I was going to just follow on to your question, and I think Josh touched on a lot of that already. So I'll forego asking my question.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Bob. Josh, we're just so grateful for you being here with us today. We're honored. I'm grateful again for just the person you are, the passion that you have, the advocacy that you provide, and not just for the disabled community, but for those kind of marginalized and smaller communities that are kind of targeted right now. And so I appreciate what you do. And thank you so much. And we're excited to just continue these conversations as time goes on. Hopefully we'll have you coming back at SciTech Global here in just a handful of months. And so yeah, we're just excited to just continue to build this relationship with Vista Center. So thank you so much. And I know from all of us, we just appreciate you and what you do.
Well, thank you so much, Ryan. And in the meantime, if anybody wants to reach out, I'm available on LinkedIn, or y'all are more than welcome to connect with the Vista Center team, and I'm sure they could provide other contact information for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing all of you here soon.
Thank you, Ryan,
My pleasure.
and everyone else.